Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm the hobbyist miner. I started crypto mining 3 years ago right here in my basement as a GPU miner. Since then, I've gone ahead and expanded to 2 crypto mining sheds. One of them packed full of GPUs and another filled with ASICs, specifically Bitcoin miners. As my channel has grown over the years, I have met some amazing people. And last week, I had the pleasure to visit BlockOps hosting facility in Arkansas. And while there, I got a chance to meet up with 2 individuals, Ben and Dennis, because these individuals are helping to protect Bitcoin mining in Arkansas while it's been under attack recently. So in this video, we have a podcast style sit down while we're in Arkansas to talk about the truth behind Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, glad to be here in Arkansas again. Honestly, it's a beautiful state, and I'm glad that we've had a chance to come and meet folks on the ground here. We really understand, why people love the state so much. So my name is Dennis Porter. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Satoshi Action Fund. Satoshi Action is an advocacy organization for Bitcoin mining. So what we do is we try to go around state by state and pass laws to protect Bitcoin miners from various forms of discrimination. And also in 2024, we'll be working to pass some laws to protect Bitcoin as well.
I love you already.
Yeah.
I love it. Right. And how about you, Ben?
Yeah.
Just a little bit about you.
Ben Smith, CEO of Emergencies BTC and Blockchain Construction. I'm a local miner here in the state of Arkansas, born here, raised here. I have my own farm, like I said, here in this town. And then we built a couple throughout the state. Just trying to get Bitcoin off the ground here in the state and talk about how mining can benefit the grid and local communities.
That's awesome. So it's crazy to think, because I've been to Arkansas twice in the last year, more than I ever have been in my life. Never even realized that Arkansas really is up and coming for Bitcoin, which is fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the current state of Bitcoin right now and Bitcoin mining. Give us kind of a quick 5-minute synopsis for yourself and your thoughts on it.
So thanks to the help of Satoshi Action Fund, last year we passed they passed the right to mine law here in the state.
We got lots of help though on that one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
So for the audience, give us a heads up. What is the right to mine? Because that verbiage is very foreign, I think, to my community.
Yeah. So basically, the state passed a law last year that went into effect in August. That allows no discrimination against Bitcoin mining, because a lot of times Bitcoin miners go into a community and they really can get harassed and discriminated against, or just simply power companies won't give them power.
Just the right not to do business.
Just say no, we're not doing it. So with the help of Dennis here and others, it's been a blessing that we've got this law passed, because now we can actually interact at a political level and the state level. And help them understand what Bitcoin is and how Bitcoin mining can help stabilize the grid and support your local communities. That way, bringing jobs. Like I said, we own a construction company that we just simply build Bitcoin mines throughout the state right now.
It's crazy to think of how far the industry has come in such a short time. To think there is a company dedicated to building.
Yeah,
Bitcoin
we just travel and build some mines and help guys out. But it's the networking effect that the Bitcoin community has, right? It's just we are small enough as a industry here in the States, especially, that we can almost reach out to via social media and stuff. I met you a couple of years ago via YouTube, right?
Yep.
I built my first mining rig off of one of his videos.
Wow.
Right? And I met you via Twitter. It's wild, right? How does that happen?
Yeah.
In this media, this form of social media and stuff days, it's just amazing like that. But how that grows into an industry that's growing here in the state, and not only Arkansas, but throughout the country with your help politically, it's just I think it's a good thing, and it's going to be beneficial to getting more right to mine bills passed. And I think you got some custodial stuff coming up throughout different states.
Right.
Super important to do, and that's what I got.
Awesome. So Dennis, so what about you? So your thoughts currently on the current state of Bitcoin, and we're talking a lot about Arkansas, so I think that's super helpful. But you're seeing a lot of Bitcoin from different levels that, as a home miner myself and most of my community, they don't even realize that some of these things are going on. So can you kind of give us a little rundown on that?
Yeah, I'm feeling very confident myself personally with where we are with Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining here in America. I mean, it was just 4 or 5 years ago. Well, hell, back in 2017 when I discovered Bitcoin, I mean, I was like too worried to sort of show my face because I was like, maybe this isn't going to work out so well.
Yeah.
But that's changed pretty dramatically over the last, 7 years ago?
Yeah.
So,
7 years.
yeah, is that right? Is that 7?
Almost, yeah.
6? No, it's 7. 2000.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
so,
1 plus
wild.
1 is still 2, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, think about that. 7 years.
Yeah.
That I mean, Bitcoin's around 15 years now, right?
That's crazy.
Just think about that. From when Satoshi wrote the white paper to now, it's been 15 years, and we're in mining. Sorry, I didn't mean to take that from you, but
Please.
just think about that. So you've been an activist in this for, like you said, 7 years now, right? In the Bitcoin community.
I've been in the
somehow,
Bitcoin
right?
space, activist for maybe 4 years, yeah.
So it's still a young community that, like you said, your audience has home miners in it. But that's the beauty of America, right? Like, it takes all of us to get something going and to move forward. And by working with the individual, we can grow this here in the States.
Sure.
And to really become a powerhouse, which is what I think we all believe in that Bitcoin is going to be one day,
that's
right?
crazy. I mean,
or even is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were talking about too, just like where has Bitcoin really come? Because you've been a part of it, and I think at that legislative level, that I think at the end of the day, like even as a home miner and stuff as yourself, it's like everything's going to roll up to that, and as you had said, the right to mine and such like that. So give me your thoughts as we talked about there, like where are we right now versus where we were for Bitcoin?
Yeah, so we used to be in a place where people were afraid to show their face, where miners were underground, they never wanted to talk, they never wanted to engage with the community. But now we have significantly matured and evolved as an industry, and folks are starting to understand the value of engaging with the local community, talking to stakeholders, talking to those in the political space. Because the inverse of that is like, okay, it might be good for a little while where you can sort of stay in the shadows, so to speak, and I don't mean that in a sort of a nefarious way, but you just sort of
cryptic way.
Yeah, I don't mean that in a cryptic way, but you sort of like,
intended.
okay, I'll stay over here on the sidelines and nobody will bother me. But if you don't take the time and the energy to engage with the community, to engage with stakeholders, especially elected officials and their offices, when something bad does happen, they're like, we don't even know these people. Fine, let's get rid of them. Who cares?
Get rid of them.
I don't even know who they are. They
They
do
have no
seem kind
personal
of
connection to them.
Yes.
Nothing,
Right, yeah.
So we really like the at Satoshi Action, we really drive forward this idea that Bitcoin mining needs to come out of the shadows. It needs to be demystified because there really is nothing to hide. And in fact, this industry has incredible benefits to offer the United States. Everything from local jobs, rural jobs in particular, to development, to being able to clean up the environment through methane mitigation, to balancing the grid, which is a big thing that we need to talk about here, and then also enhancing energy projects. So when you tell that to lawmakers, they're like, wait, I thought it was bad. And they're like, no, there's all these great things. So we really need to step out of the shadows, step out, not be afraid to demystify the space because there's a lot to gain from those lawmakers and those stakeholders knowing the value of the technology.
Yeah, and that's where your group really comes in, is bringing a lot of those to light, which I think is super important. So talking a little bit about that, Ben, let's talk a little bit about your story here. And so give us the rundown there, and then we'll get into a little bit about how Bitcoin mining really helps to beef up and upgrade the network, the infrastructure for the electrical grid, and kind of how that came into play with your farm recently.
Yeah, so I'll give you background on my story. I was a firefighter paramedic for 15 years. Had nothing to do really with any mining or engineering or anything like that. Realized that I could monetize. I had a tanning salon, and I realized that I could, in the back of it, had excess power. I was like, man, I could set up some GPU rigs and stuff, and I heard about this Ethereum thing and stuff like that. So that's where I started mining. And I met my now partners in my company and started telling them about it. They are local real estate guys, construction guys, stuff like that. And they were like, oh, man, they really saw the value in it, right? And so I said, let's give this a shot. And they took a chance with me, and we built out our farm. And just going through that process, like, you think that you just walk into your house and you flip a light on and electricity is there, right? Like, that's 99.9% of Americans, or probably people in the world, they understand energy.
That's right.
But, like, really understanding how energy works and how the grid works really commingles with Bitcoin mining, right? Like how power is made, how it's consumed, how it has to be a balance at any given time, and really how we can, as Bitcoin miners, can stabilize that grid, offer green solutions to the grid. And it was just almost by chance that we fell into this at the same time. Like, we had no clue that the right to mine bill was going through. We had no clue that they were working with something called the Public Service Commission here in the state. I don't know if y'all know I know you do. You know who the Public Service Commission is. I didn't know who it was. And they were holding up us from turning on our power. Wow. And I literally called the Public Service Commission and told the lady, ma'am, I don't know who the hell you are, but why am I not getting power at my site? And she quickly informed me what the Public Service Commission was, right? And I was like, this is wild. This is a whole new world, right?
That's right.
It's stuff that the average American does not understand. But they need to, not necessarily, the average person doesn't need to understand it, but the politicians need to understand, because they're the decision makers here in the state, or not just the state, in the whole country, right? And there is that benefit for any grid out there. You know, that is, the energy play is the play for Bitcoin miners, whether it be, you know, riot guys like at the big scale, medium-sized guys like us, or even home guys like all of us, right? Like, we all serve a purpose in stabilizing this grid.
You mentioned something there, and I'd like Dennis to speak on this a little bit, is how do you explain to decision makers or politicians or representatives how Bitcoin stabilizes the grid? Because we hear stabilizing the grid all the time, but I don't really think people understand how that works. So how are you explaining it to these representatives?
Yeah, so really simply put, the grid has to be in perfect equilibrium at all times. The supply has to meet the demand. If the demand spikes, right? So if you have a day recently, you had days recently were very cold.
Yes.
Everybody's using a lot of energy, and all of a sudden there's not enough energy for the grid to be able to make. And so if they go beyond that point, what the actual grid can produce, then you'll start to run into very serious problems. You'll get rolling brownouts, potentially blackouts, potentially even system-wide outages, which is like the worst case scenario.
Which is like what we saw in Texas the other year with the big storm, right?
They had blackouts, but system-wide outages, even a step beyond that. It's a black start. It means like you got to like bring in generators to reboot the whole thing, which they did in portions in Texas, but not on the whole thing. Okay. So, you know, and when those situations happen, you know, at what do you call it? At best, your food is going bad in the fridge, and at worst, people are dying, right? Yeah. So it's a big deal, and it's why grid operators are so careful to never let this type of stuff happen. But we live in the real world. You can't predict for everything, but they try to. And one of the ways that they do that is to build additional redundancy, build additional infrastructure. Usually it means peaker plants or additional power generation, very expensive to do. And so that causes rates to actually go up for ratepayers because they have to plan for those emergency days.
On things they never use the peaker plants for, right?
That's right. They just sit there idle.
They build millions of dollars worth of infrastructure that they don't use. They use it, you know, I think we hear a lot of once in 100-year storms here recently. Every year is a once in 100-year flood, 100-year storm. But those are true things. Like, say in Texas, they have it once a year, right? Maybe once a year. But you built a $100 million peaker plant that you turn on for 2 days?
No.
Who do you think that cost is getting sent off to, right?
That's right. Of taxpayers.
Yeah,
so I guess then Bitcoin miners, how does that come into play here to stabilize that grid?
Well, it's real simple. It takes all but a button push to...
Okay, we're going to start a curtailment. So this is our load right here at 972, just a megawatt on this one. And go ahead and give it the command to shut them down. Okay, so now you can see we have zero power draw. We have entered curtailment. We've done it about 8 minutes earlier than need be, just to make sure everything was okay. That way we don't receive any issues from Entergy. There, as you can see, it's quite cold here. So there you go.
Shut down a Bitcoin miner. Shut down. What did you do? How many megawatts did you shut down?
We shut down 5 megawatts here, and then 8 over in Russellville. But throughout the state, we shut down 135 megawatts, I think
Wow.
is what it was.
Wow.
They got shut down throughout the state at the same time.
Yeah, so
Like
you guys
we were all
pretty
in the
much,
same period.
for those at home, they're adding to that demand, that need, that's there, and then all of a sudden, there is a demand elsewhere because of these storms that are occurring.
That's right.
And so there's something called curtailment that occurs that Ben and other farms are under these contracts with the power companies, where you end up turning off in times of need, the spikes that you had spoke about, and now all of a sudden, this is all available.
That's right. Yeah, so Bitcoin mining is, in my opinion, the most important tool that we have to balance the grid today. And I've actually gone to folks in the energy world as high up as FERC, which is the federal level for one of the highest level energy committees in the United States. And I spoke to a former FERC economist, and I told him what Bitcoin mining can do. And he said, if that's true, then Bitcoin mining is the best grid balancing technology that we have today.
That's crazy.
And so but we need to start backing this stuff up too, which is a big part of another initiative that we have at Satoshi Action. We want to back it up with peer-reviewed academic research to show that this stuff is actually real, not just me and Ben running around telling everyone it balances the grid. And,
it really is true that
we
people
promise.
Really well, I will say, like, when I even got into Bitcoin mining, my partners were like, "Man, we've heard of this thing, but we don't know where any of it is actually taking place, right?" It's like, sure, this Bitcoin thing, we can see it on a chart somewhere going up and down, right? But is this mining thing actually a true thing? So we traveled the country, went to visit a couple of farms, and we're like, oh, this is like a legit thing, all right? And I think that's important too. And I think that kind of alludes back to what you were saying about people lurking in the shadows. I personally, if you wanted to come visit a farm, I can get you in touch with a lot of mining operators here in the state to come visit that kind of stuff, like politicians and stuff, to see it. Because I think that's important because, we hear the horror stories of crypto, right? Of course. Of Bitcoin and all that. But there's that positive side. And we've all heard the horror stories of crypto and what Bitcoin can do. And we can't let that be the narrative, right? Like, we need to, take the bull by the balls, essentially, right? And say, hey, this is a real thing. This is a tangible item. We are really converting electricity into a digital asset. And we're stabilizing the grid. Like you said, we can't just be running around saying that we do. We have to actually show that we do.
Well, I think, too, as well, like, I find this even at my scale, and I have 2 small sheds mining Bitcoin, and showing people that it's exactly the effect that you had talked about. It's like people hear about it in the news. They hear about all the negative things about it. It's all rumor-based. And then I have even found when I show people it, they're like, oh, this is legitimate, one.
Yeah.
And this is what it's doing, too. And then when you explain at a very basic level how it works, what it does, and where you come in on the benefits is totally different. So I think that's a really key identifier there. So from your perspective, what have you found as the biggest challenge for you, and you'd love my audience to know about, in your position, trying to advocate for Bitcoin?
I mean, it's definitely the education process.
Okay.
I mean, it works, but there are many lawmakers and many staffers that still today need to be educated on this issue. And then once we get them and we educate them, we say, like, okay, this is the benefits. The next phase from there is what I mentioned earlier, is actually getting real research, peer-reviewed research, hopefully, and we work on that, but we need to get more of that out so that we can prove to the folks that are maybe in the middle. Because a lot of the people that were like, some people get it right away. They're like, oh, this makes sense, let's do it.
Clicks.
I don't need extra material.
Yeah.
But some people are on the fence, which is, I appreciate. There's a lot of issues that lawmakers have to care about these days.
Yeah.
Everything from wars to the border to homelessness. These are really important issues, big issues. And so we're fighting for that attention. And so we need to find a way to cut through. And that's where peer review research comes in and is extremely valuable to making sure that when we're talking about what Ben is doing to help the grid, that it's not just a story, it's actually backed up with credible evidence that, basically anybody can pick up and say, oh, okay, this is real.
Fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And, back to the lawmakers, we live, eat, breathe, sleep Bitcoin mining and everything else every day, right? Just imagine what them guys have to go through. They have so many topics that they have to, one, educate themselves on, right? And then make an informed opinion on. So I can't imagine. They may only have 10, 15 minutes a day to even think about a topic because maybe they have 20 topics to work on that day, right? So I think it's super important that we get the crowd out there and we get people like Dennis out there to push those narratives to them. I don't want to say narratives, because narratives is that's a bad word, I think.
Because it's not like we're just saying things just to
it
make
should be more of push the truth.
I agree.
I think that's really where that comes from. Because I think that really speaks a lot to the fact of what you're doing and what's happening at that political and legislative level that affects, that comes down to my level, which is home miners.
Right.
So I think that's really where it comes into play, where you and I were talking and it was man, curtailment, how awesome would that be that I could be on an electric plan and that would allow me to have a lower rate, but at the flip side of it, I need to power down when we're in a state of emergency or a storm or something like that, and I can guarantee you 99% of home miners would be please, because right now home miners have no representation. They are either not mining at all or going to hosting facilities, which is where you guys come into play, because there's no option there for them, and they feel stuck. And I know miners that are in California, for example, and they got 30 or 40 cent electric rates, and there's no opportunity for them. Now, you would have to make it work both ways, which you could out there, because you have the heat, Arizona and everything, and your brownouts that occur, so it could completely be reversed. What do you see?
I wanted to jump in real quick. So there was one thing that you mentioned when you said that the home miners don't have any representation.
Yeah.
But that's not entirely true. That is exactly why Satoshi Action exists, because we knew that we needed to go out and protect, we're not here to just protect the mega mines. Those guys have all the money to do that.
That's true.
Certainly
they
we
can
love
buy those. They can get into those PPAs.
They've got capital markets that they've got capital markets that they can access that the small to medium sized miners cannot. And so we really realized. Well, I'll tell you my story. 2017, started mining Bitcoin myself out of my house. And I realized right away, I taught myself how to do electrical work. I taught myself how to do noise mitigation. Taught myself how to do.
Sounds like a home miner right there.
Yeah.
Taught myself how to direct heat flows.
Jack of all trades, right?
But before that, I hadn't really ever had that sort of drive to learn how to do those things. And I was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. This technology is driving me to innovate.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I said, if at the time, not interested in learning how to do electrical work, not interested in heat flow, not interested in learning how to do the software, everything, but all of a sudden very interested, I said, well, this must be having a similar impact on others.
Right.
And at that moment, I learned something that later impacted why Satoshi Action is so dedicated to protecting miners, and is because this technology drives people to innovate. And I want as much of that innovation to take place here in the United States as possible. And that's why even in our right to mine model language, we protect home mining.
That's awesome.
Home mining, we protect it.
When's it coming to
flat
Pennsylvania?
out.
Let's go.
Well, you might have some breaking news for you here in a little bit, but
awesome.
No announcements to speak of now. But real quick on right to mine, another big thing though that we really should talk about is the impact that right to mine, also Act 851 here in the state of Arkansas, which was passed last year into law. Signed by the governor.
And what exactly is that?
That law, it protects Bitcoin miners from very specific types of discrimination. So let's say noise complaints, noise ordinances, discriminatory noise ordinances, discriminatory zoning changes, discriminatory rate changes, and a few other things like money transmitter license exemptions, which are probably less relevant to this conversation. But when we passed that law here, you said, you back earlier in the conversation, you didn't know it was coming in. But there was an issue brewing here around noise in the state. And, there's a lot of miners out there, and sometimes they come in and they sort of set up and the noise is more than they think, and it can cause a little bit of a kerfuffle, especially in a state that appreciates the peace and quiet.
And natural state for a reason.
Natural state, and certainly for purposes of protecting the wildlife as well, totally understood. But a lot of communities were getting very, very upset. I mean, there's 75 counties here in the state. And a lot of those counties were starting to say, well, we're not sure we even want this technology here. But mostly that was driven out of fear. And so Act 851 came up and was passed in a law. And what it did is it didn't stop those communities from protecting themselves. But it just said, you can't discriminate. You can't pick out a Bitcoin miner and say, well, we're going to make a law to basically sort of ban you.
Because that's what a lot of times happens when someone comes in, an outsider or even local comes in and wants to do something like that. All of a sudden you magically have this law that appears that kind of pushes them out. So that's fantastic.
The biggest point really about it too, yes, we were super glad we came in when we did, because at the end of the day, it ended up protecting Bitcoin miners across the entire state from this type of discrimination, and actually also resulted in some counties passing more healthy noise ordinances as well.
So as a local, and as a business owner, I have to interact with my community every day, right? Like when I go to church, I have to interact with all my fellow, people from my community there. When I go out to restaurants, I have to interact with people that I know every day doing things, right? If I'm at the gym, anything like that. I don't want to piss those people off.
Sure.
Right? Like, I'm not here to make my neighbor mad. So while the bill did help with, or did protect Bitcoin mining, we still have to be mindful of our community, right? Like, I still have to send my son to school here, right? I don't want to make my neighbor mad. I don't want to make somebody I grew up with mad, right? So as a local, I think that's super important. And I think that's almost like a pillar of Bitcoin in the community, right? Like we talk about Bitcoin as freedom, right? Financial freedom, and all that. Well, you make money on it. Bitcoin goes up, all that. But Bitcoin means more than that, all right? It is we talk about how we could use, Bitcoin can solve a lot of problems in the world. Well, the miners can't cause problems, I feel like, right? Like, we need our miners to be good pillars in our communities to bring local jobs, the grid, like we've talked about here, but just...
taking care of the noise.
Yeah, take care of the noise. You want to be a good neighbor to everybody, right? And I do think, like, you get these mega companies that we talked about that, obviously, when you get that kind of money and stuff into things, sometimes that kind of blurs the lines, right?
They come in and they have no neighbors.
That's right.
Coming in as these mega facilities coming in, and they're outsiders coming from overseas, possibly, or just complete outsiders, and just setting up camp.
Yeah.
And then they're not experiencing the same thing you just spoke about.
Right. They're not here for that, right? They're here to make a dollar and to do whatever they have
So
what it is they have to do.
a two-way street, as you had talked about.
But I don't think any of us can sit here and say that there isn't problems with the Bitcoin mining community. Like, this is my job, right? This is my career. This is my business. This is my life. It's all of our lives, right? So I think it's important, as much as we talk about balancing the grid and stuff like that, we also need to talk about being good neighbors. That is super important, I feel like, for everybody, because we have a saying here in the South, kill them with kindness sometimes, right? You can do that, right? Like, a business can kill your neighbors with kindness. Like, we don't have to fight. We don't have to be bad neighbors to anybody or cause issues. So I think while bills like the Right to Mine bill is super important, there is still responsibility on the business owners and the miners to do what's right, right? And I think that is a narrative, again, not narrative, something that we need to show, is because, like, we're not the neighborhood bully, right? Like, we're not here to cause a bunch of issues of sound and stuff like that. Same thing. We're here to balance the grid, right? Why am I here to balance the grid? I was a paramedic for 15 years. I still am a paramedic, actually. I've gone into homes time and time again where there are people that literally live in their house on a ventilator, right? Wow. And they are dependent on that electrical grid to be stable enough to provide them with electricity 24/7 to run those ventilators, right? Like that would kill me to know that if out of my greed to make $100 in the 4 hours worth of curtailment that I would make, right, I killed somebody, right? As somebody that practices medicine, first in life, that tugs at my heart a lot, right? Like, I don't want to hurt nobody. And I think about that, again, that's my neighbor, right? Like, I'm dead serious when I say that is my neighbor and I don't want to hurt them. And we talk about that with, like, the grid and stuff like that. It all comes together, I feel like, for those reasonings of, like, Bitcoin is here to help the community prosper financially, like all of us. Like, of course, we all want to make money, right? But it's also to actually help the community. Like, there is I feel like it's going to be a pillar of every community in the future, I hope, of utilities and stuff like that. It is the infrastructure that we're going to have here in America, I hope. I think we all hope that, right? And how it's going to work. So
pivoting the conversation a little bit.
Could I say something just real quick right there? I have to say, Ben is the exact reason, and miners like Ben are the exact reason why I started Satoshi Action. And that's why we wanted to get out there and pass things like Right to Mine. Because this industry, whether it be Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining, I don't know what it is, but it attracts a certain type of person. Whether they be just someone that's a go-getter, someone that really cares about their community, someone that's really good, entrepreneur that's good at innovating. But it always seems, every time I meet a miner like Ben, I'm always extremely impressed. And it's why Right to Mine, Act 851 matters so much, because I can make sure that Ben can keep doing business and that the communities can also be in balance as well. So I just had to say, I mean, what you said was...
That was great.
I loved what you said.
It's true.
Good job, man.
It's true.
Yeah, that was great.
No,
so one question I had for you before we wrap things up here. In your position with the Satoshi Action Fund, what do you find is the biggest misconception, the biggest misunderstanding that you run into?
I mean, it's always that people think that Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining is a scam. It is a Ponzi scheme that only for criminals. And so we spend a lot of our early time when we talk to folks that haven't taken the time or haven't had the opportunity to look deep into Bitcoin. And maybe also it's like there's a lot of stuff out there. It's hard to know and like pierce through the veil and see that Bitcoin is very different and very special. But that's the big thing, is really changing their hearts and minds to see that, you know, Bitcoin can do a lot of things just like the internet. It can do good things and it can do bad things. You can, you know, buy drugs on the internet with it, or you can use it to escape a totalitarian regime as a political dissident. You know, there's a lot of reasons where there are good and there are bad things. So we as a country, what we should do really with policy is we should encourage the good behavior, the things we do like. Same with the internet. We don't just allow people to do whatever the hell they want on the internet. We allow quite a bit.
Absolutely.
But we try to stay away from we disincentivize the bad behavior and encourage the good behavior. And so what we do is we acknowledge there's things out there that Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining can do. You could you know, if you don't like carbon emissions and you don't want Bitcoin mining to be plugged into a coal plant, well then why don't you go build a solar farm and start mining Bitcoin? Because you actually can take away this whole economics around how it works, but ultimately you can help make the Bitcoin mining operation greener yourself. So we just encourage people, if there's something you want Bitcoin to be used for, go and use it for that.
Right.
Awesome.
Absolutely. What's the thing that just came out, right? Like with Senator Warren, you know, of
the percentage,
what, $900 million last year, or $1 billion, whatever it was illicit activities, and the dollar and 900 grand was in Bitcoin, you know.
Well, and then if you're talking about this small little thing,
and then if you like
volume,
it's pretty incredible. And then there's actual data out there to prove that what she's saying is just totally categorically wrong. And we all know it's pretty common, it's well understood that the dollar or any sort of paper currency is the most commonly used form.
Right.
I'm not anti-cash. I love cash, but at the same time, like, let's be realistic about where the problem lies. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jokingly, I like to tell people that because it's true, right? Like terrorism, sex trafficking, drugs, all the things that you hear about Bitcoin is that's done on a huge scale on the fiat system, right?
Pick your currency.
Pick it. It doesn't matter. People are going to find a way to do bad, no matter what medium of exchange it is, right? So I think that is really it's a non-starter conversation to me, because I mean we all do, or not we all do. People always use fiat for bad things too, at a greater scale.
That's right. I think to wrap things up here, do you want to tell a little bit more about where people can learn more about the Satoshi Action Fund, and then Ben, on your side, the Arkansas Blockchain Council?
Yeah, certainly. So Satoshi Action, you can go to satoshiaction.io, and you can learn more about us as an organization. You know, we do everything from passing things like Right to Mine, but we also go do a lot of big educational efforts. We handed out a Bitcoin book to every single member of Congress's office by hand. Wow. In fact, we did 700 in total, and there's 535 offices, so some got multiple. So we do a lot of work in education, and we do a lot of work to lock in wins, political wins for Bitcoin miners. You can go there, you can check out all of our work. And I actually encourage people, you know, if you like the work that we do and you want to support us, like, there's a way to donate right there on the page. Awesome. A lot of our money comes from small dollar donors. We have a whole bunch of $5, $10 a month folks who really see the value.
Via Bitcoin.
You can absolutely, but unfortunately, someone needs to do the monthly thing for Bitcoin. So I think someone's working on it, but you know, it's a different system. But certainly you can donate in Bitcoin and Lightning. You know, we really believe in using the technology. But at the end of the day, like, those small dollar donors are the ones that sort of fuel us and allow us to move further. And honestly, there's nothing better than someone who that's all they have to give is $5, because that means a lot to us as an organization
Sure.
over some big guy giving me money that, you know, he got let loose.
Yeah.
But we really love the support of our small to medium-sized miners, and especially our home miners as well.
Awesome. And Ben, what about the Arkansas Blockchain?
Yeah, so I am a board member, founding board member of the Arkansas Blockchain Council. We work with Satoshi Action Fund on getting the laws passed here in the state. Just anything that really goes not just with mining, but also Web3. I know your audience has a lot of Web3 developing guys, stuff like that. Like all that stuff, we all know it's coming, right? Like so. With the Blockchain Council, we kind of want to bring all that under an umbrella of a community, first of all, right? But also a way to innovate, like you've talked about, you know, the innovation of across the crypto industry. And so you can go to arkansasblockchaincouncil.org. You can become a member. If you're here in Arkansas, you can. You can reach to me on Telegram. Through hobbyists, you can reach them and get out in touch with me. But there's a national blockchain council, right? I don't know if they have board members. I'm sure they do,
ones,
like a federal type thing. I think here at Arkansas Blockchain Council, we're trying to interact with other blockchain councils in different states.
Yeah.
So, again, back to that community-centered focus of the Bitcoin community and crypto community as a whole. If you're not here in Arkansas, get out and join your state's blockchain council. I'm sure the majority of states have them now, right? And just talk to them and interact with your community more, because that's what it's going to take. Is we're going to have a voice. We're going to have to stand up and practice what we preach sometimes in behind a computer, right? Or trolling somebody on Twitter and stuff. Like, get out there and actually interact in your community, because that's what's going to hit home here, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're going to feel part of something, right? And the more you feel part of something, the more you're going to get things done. Like you were saying earlier, you know, there's more go-getters out there, and like if I'm learning how to wire up something or how to put in software on something, there has to be other people out there wanting to do it, right?
Absolutely.
And that's important to get out and talk to those people. So.
Awesome. So guys, I'm going to put links to both of these directly down below. I'll also put these guys' Twitter if you guys want to go over and follow them over there. And for myself, from Ben, and of course our guy here, we appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.